For this elevations and cross-sections session, I'll cover exterior elevations, story pole dimensions, cross-section views, keynotes, and construction lines. Let's begin by looking at the different types of section cameras the program offers. The program has three types of elevation style cameras. The first one is the cross-section elevation camera, next is a back-clipped cross-section camera, and finally is the wall elevation camera. Let me start with the elevation and cross-section camera. I'm going to come down in front of the house and I'm just going to click and drag. This camera will generate a view from that point forward and show everything on that layer set in the view. The next style of camera is the back clip cross-section camera. In this case, I'm just going to click and drag a small slice right through the front of the house, and that generates a view. The distance you've drawn that camera for that slice can be very effective to isolate certain views, maybe a stairway headroom. This camera can be unclipped by going into the Edit Active View tool. Down towards the bottom is the option to clip the camera. When you use the camera, this is automatically checked. If I uncheck that camera, the view becomes a standard elevation view camera. The final view is a wall elevation camera. You click and drag the wall elevation camera outside of a room. The program will tell you that this camera is intended to be used for rooms. You could instead generate a regular elevation. So when you're using this tool, you're going to want to click and drag inside of a room to generate a wall elevation. That view will be limited to the room and generate specifically for the wall. This particular tool will be used when we get into the kitchen and bath sessions to talk about generating wall elevations. Let me quickly close the views that I have open. To generate your exterior elevations, you can use the elevation camera and go around each side of the house and click and drag to create that elevation camera. You will also find a tool underneath the 3D menu to auto-create all of your elevation views. This will generate all four camera views in the plan, and as I zoom in on the front, you can see that it's also auto-named them. To open up those cameras, you can double-click on them, do dimension work, annotation work. These views are already saved, so that step you wouldn't have to do. If you did generate your own view, you can always come up and use the tool called Save Active View. That will explicitly save that view, so any work that you do will be saved along with that camera. Next to the Save Active View is the Edit Active View. The program gave this camera the default name of Exterior Elevation Front. Sometimes the program may guess wrong. Maybe it thinks the front is the rear. You can go in and change it. One of the things that I like to do is explicitly name the camera, and in this case I'm going to put E1 in front of the name. When I open up my project browser, if I have many cameras, this will assist in the sorting of those views and make the organization a little bit easier for me to navigate. As we move down, there is an option to turn color on and off. Show the watermark. At the very bottom of the screen you see my watermark is turned on. Show shadows. A lot of times I do like to show the shadows. Ray-casted shadows will give you a little crisper shadow. Edge smoothing when idle will take advantage when your computer is idle to smooth out any pixelation. Sunlight if you're using sunlight. And then positioning of the camera. We already discussed back clipping, clip to sides, and clip width. More appropriate when we get into doing our room and wall elevations in another session. On the Selected Defaults panel are all of the different defaults that you can make adjustments to. The one that I'm going to single out and focus on are the notes for the Keynotes section of the session. Currently is set to be a default generic note. I'm going to make a change from the default note to the exterior note. Let's click the Edit button, and you can see that when I generate one of these notes that the type is set to exterior notes. There are several that you can choose from depending on the type of work you're doing for your annotations. You can select from the different list. On the Plan Display panel, this is control for how the camera will appear in your floor plan view. Currently it is set to display on all floors. There may be times when you have a call-out camera and you don't want to display on the second floor or on the foundation floor, you can generate that view and then restrict it to the floor you drew it on. You can display it as a call-out, and we can look at that in my floor plan view. The placement, currently that camera is centered. You can position it left, right, both sides, and then the camera callout label will show up in your floor plan view. There's an option for the label size, and then just above that, text below the line, you can type in any text you want. If you check the automatic option off to the side, when you send a view to the layout sheet, the text below line will automatically populate with the page number for that layout. If I send it to page 5 on the layout, automatically this would say E1 with a cross-section line and the number 5 below it. Few options for your callout arrows. On the plan backdrop, if you had a backdrop, sometimes you may do an elevation, change your camera style to watercolor. You can choose and associate a backdrop with that. You can position your cameras on different layers, and then on the label panel, a few options that you can customize. Let's go ahead and close this dialog. Immediately when I did, you may notice that the shadows appeared on the elevation when we made that change. Let's go over into the project browser. There's a category in the project browser for cross sections. You can see that the 4 elevations that have been created are all listed. As this list grows, you can see at the top, it's now sorted at the top with E1. The other cameras may get cluttered. You can always click, I'll just hold my shift key down, grab all of these cameras, then I'll right click and edit all views. And I'm going to come over and make common changes to these. So on the camera panel, I'm going to check the option to turn on shadows. On the selected defaults, come down, we'll make the exact same change. We'll drop that down, and I'm going to choose the exterior notes. Plan display should be fine. I'm not going to make any changes because I've selected all 3 cameras, and then that will adjust all those cameras as I open them. To make individual changes, go ahead and right click on the view, hit edit view. See the call out in the floor plan view is E3. I can come over here, make that change E3. Project browser then updates. You can always make the changes on the other cameras. Simply come in here and just click, and then we can come in, make the adjustment, call this one E2, and then we'll do the same thing for this last camera, and then I'll just name it E4, and that helps in sorting those cameras. Now notice in the bottom is a preview of the elevation view of that camera. As you click on the different views, you'll see the preview. If you have a lot of cameras, this can be useful to help you isolate which camera you wanted to open without opening it and discovering what camera it is. I mentioned you can control the camera based on floor. If we move over into the floor plan, let's kind of zoom in and take a look at camera E1 that's currently open. When you have a currently open camera, notice that the fill is blanked out. That just means the camera is open. When you close it, the fill will return and look more like the camera that I have off to the left. Let's say for this camera that I take the setting and change it to the plan display to display, let's remove the display on all floors. And then when you move up to the second story, notice that that camera is not being displayed because of that setting. Let's say you've created an elevation view, you've added a lot of annotations, and you happen to draw it on the wrong floor. What you can do, I'm going to move back over into that elevation view. Notice that my floor indicator is on floor 1. If I move up to floor 2, the elevation doesn't change, but it did change the floor it's on. And now when I save that view, it's now saved on floor 2. In the floor plan view, you now see that camera is being displayed. If I move down to floor 1, the display is not on. And to make the change in there, you can just simply edit the active view and mark that it's on all floors, and then that camera display will return back. So when you've drawn a cross-section or an elevation view, you want to restrict the view to a particular floor plan, and you realize you've drawn it on the wrong floor, open up the view and use the floor indicator to move up or down to change the location of where that camera is. Let's shift gears and take a look at placing story pole dimensions on the front of the house. This is camera E1. Underneath the automatic dimension tool is a story pole dimension. When I click to place the automatic story pole dimensions, they will then place according to the dimension defaults that I have set. Let's begin by taking a look at what those defaults are. So I'm going to come into the default settings, and underneath the category for auto story pole dimensions, let's begin on the general panel. You can see the positioning is set to be on the left, and when I created those dimensions, that's why they appeared on the left. The reach is the distance across the house. Let's see if we can just pull this down a little bit. You see how the peak of the ridges have been selected with those story pole dimensions? The final peak off to the far right did not get picked up. If I were to change that reach, which is a percentage across the house, to 100%, then all of those items would have been picked up. Depending on your preference, make the changes as you want. Save this in your template plan. Dimensions on the right, dimensions top, bottom, and then inner dimensions, you can make adjustments. As I kind of move my mouse over, you can see some of these items will update in preview. The inner format, you can control for the formatting, outer format, control for the formatting. It's using my dimension default, and I believe I set that up to be 1/4 inch dimension defaults. So any of those changes that you want to make in the formatting of it, then you would adjust it in those 1/4 inch dimension defaults. Marker format, let's go down to the locate elevations, and this is where you're going to pick up all of the key points for those dimension items. And currently you can see that the selected items to include are in the list on the right hand side. If you want to click on one of these and remove it, or if you want to click on an item and add it, you'll find those controls. There's a setting where you can check if it's going to be on the outer. The grade level is controlled through the setting at the very top. This is independent of your terrain. If you have created terrain in your model, you will set the grade marker elevation right up here, and this is in reference to the subfloor. -6 inches would mean that on the subfloor for floor 1, this grade marker will be 6 inches below that. And then the layer that these get placed on, you can choose that layer. Now when you have these story pole dimensions, and let's just kind of zoom in, you can modify these. This is the automatic placement. So you can click on these items, and if you wanted to remove a element, you click on there, you see all the diamonds appear off to the side. You can just simply pull those off and adjust them. You can also click on the extension itself, and I'm just going to kind of click back here. You see the red selection handle. I can now pull that grade level down so that I don't have too close of callouts for this dimension. And this top of plate, let's zoom out. We may need to figure out where that's being dimensioned. That must have been right on the edge of our 75%. I'm just going to pull that dimension marker off so that it cleans it up, and then I can come over here and pull that top of slab and move up top of plate, top of second floor. And let's say that you want to add a new dimension. You can click on the dimension, get the extra diamond, and I'll just grab this one over here, and we'll pull it all the way across and pull it in right in there, and then we're going to have to zoom in to see where that is. That's very close to the other one, so in that case you'd need to click. Let me move over and grab this one over here, and we'll just pull that out of the way. And you can see that it gets pretty cluttered if you try to put all of those story pole dimensions on one side. I typically might just put them on one side, clean them up. When you do the elevation on the back, then you're going to get the other side and pick up those dimensions that may not be covered on the front. If you want to add another dimension in here and there's not a point that you can pick up, you could use maybe the CAD line or a CAD point. I'm just going to use a line so we can kind of see this. Let's just put a line right in here. Click on the dimension, pull that in. Notice that there's no call out on it. It doesn't say ridge or plate, but if you zoom in, you can see a number 6. It may be difficult to see, but there's a number 6 right there. If we use the open button and then come up to the extensions and markers, you see the number 6 right now? There is no descriptor text. So I'm just going to come down and we'll just call this the CAD line, for lack of a more imaginative term. And now I've got that new marker. You can also come in here. If we click on this one, you'll see the number 5. Open this up, and you can see that any of these items can be renamed. And so if you wanted to say ridge number 2 or ridge number 3, so it's more descriptive for you, then it's easy to go in and modify those items. I'll just delete that CAD line and clean that up a little bit. That's how the story pole dimensions work. I like to use the automatic behavior and then modify them as I need to for the particular look. And one of them might be just clicking on this line and pulling it back. Since it crosses right over the top of my elevation, I'll toggle on my crosshairs so I can use the alignment there. I may want to clean these up so they actually don't step on top of the walls, and depending on what your style is, you can pull those back. Just click on the extension line and slide it back. A lot of times I like to clean those up so that it's not crossing over the top of your elevation view. To create keynotes and other annotations, I'm going to move up into the menu, and the first one I'm going to use is the text with leader line. Using this tool, I'm going to click on the window trim, come over, click again, and then I'm just going to type in cedar trim. Now, in some cases, you may not want to clutter up your elevation views with a lot of text. You can use a callout with a keynote. You'll find that tool with the Keynote tool. I'm going to just come over here and I'm going to click on the siding, and earlier we changed the note type to the exterior notes, and let's just call this panelized board. First thing you're going to see is an indicator that I don't have a schedule for my notes. Let's open up the project browser, and underneath the CAD details I have a lot of things in here. You see that I have notes for bathrooms, closets, kitchens, and other items in here. I don't have a schedule for exterior notes. I typically always put my schedules in CAD details, and until a schedule is created, the note won't show up. If I were to open my regular template plan up, I would have a notes exterior, but you may not have one. Let's go through the process of creating one. The reason that I put my notes in a CAD detail is I don't want them off to the side over here, and then I have to figure out the scale between the elevation view and my notes. So I'm just going to right click on CAD details. I'm going to say new CAD detail, and we'll come over here and we'll just call this exterior notes. This opens up a nice blank area inside of the plan, and from the tools menu I'm going to come down to the schedule section, and I'm going to place a note schedule. And when I place the note schedule, you can see that the number populates, it says panelized board and note schedule. Let me open up this note schedule by double clicking. One of the things I'm going to do for the note schedule is you could come down underneath notes and you could remove all of the other note types except exterior notes. There's a few others down below. That would isolate the notes to this. Also, there are different settings, the different columns you can add. Currently I have the 2D symbol and the text for the only 2 columns, but there are several others that you could add in for your note schedule. You can also set defaults for your note schedule. Once you're finished with that, and let me actually just change the title of that to say exterior keynotes, and we move back over into the elevation view, you can see now there is a number associated with it. You do need to have the schedule so that it can populate the numbers. And when you place another note, we'll just come over here and let's just place a note in here for a casement window. Again, notice that we have the exterior note selected because that was our default. That note will automatically include the next number in the sequence. If you are going to change some of the default settings in your schedule, you could come in here, click on this, and make this your default. You may want to use a generic title instead of something that I have in here, maybe just Keynotes. So anything that you've customized with that, then you could make that your default setting. So when you do place a new note schedule, that it's available. I leave my note schedule in my template plan, and then when I start a new project, I don't have to go through the process of creating schedule or keynotes for those items. In this segment, let's take a look at placing construction lines you can use on your plan view that will also then transpose in your elevation views. underneath of the line tool is the option to include construction lines. Let me go ahead and zoom in on the area that I'm going to place the first line. I'm going to come over, use my snap tool, and place the very first construction line. Then open up the properties of this construction line. In the construction line dialog on the construction line panel, a few options to draw these lines infinitely. That way they will extend for the plan view and the elevation view regardless of your model size. On the callouts panel for your plan view, a few options on how to control the view, the exact same settings for the elevation, and then the label itself. I'm going to go ahead and number the first one. You have control over the shape and the orientation, and then a few others for your line style and your text style. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the copy tool. I'm going to slide a copy over, and let's just press the tab key. I'm going to enter in 30 feet, and let's go ahead and zoom out. That should have moved it to that dimension number in here. And I'll just change the call out to the number 2, and then since the model extends back, let's use the copy tool. Let's slide our copy back into this area. These will snap to your dimension strings, so you can make a copy of those, use the snap tool, and snap those to the dimension string. You see that snap indicator that you get. Let's go ahead and open up these. We'll name this 3, and then the last one we'll go ahead and name this 4. So I have 4 construction lines. Typically you might numerically number these and then alpha number them going in the up and down direction. Let's go back into the elevation camera. In the elevation view, I'm going to toggle on my crosshairs. I have a shortcut equals. I'm going to pull these down so that I can get an alignment. Just click on them, pull that extension line down. I'm using the crosshair to try to align it. And we'll do the same on the last one over here. We'll just kind of pull this down, and then the last one, pull that down as well. So this is modifying it in all elevation views that you might have to get those. If you want to turn the lines on or off, click on it, open up your active layer display. You can see that it comes in on its own layer, so you can just simply toggle that on or off for your elevation views. In the completed version of the sample plan, in the floor plan view, you see all of the construction lines that have been added, and then you can see how they look in the completed elevation view. In the final segment for the session, let's go through the process of creating the cross-section views. To create the section view, I'm going to use the back clip cross-section. Let me zoom in. I want to create a section so that it cuts right through the section of the stairs. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag a small slice right through the stairs. When I'm happy, I'll release the mouse to generate the view. As you're annotating the design, you can use the dimension tools, annotation tools, and callouts as you need to document. Let me begin by placing a small story pole off to the right hand side. I'm going to go into my default settings, down to dimensions, and I'm going to modify my auto story pole dimensions. Currently they're set to be on the left. I'm going to change them to be on the right. I'm going to change the reach so that it's only going to go through about 10% of the model. Now I can use the auto story pole tool and generate the story pole off to the right hand side. So just by changing the defaults, I can easily change it to be different than the front elevation we did earlier in the session. To dimension the stairs, I'm going to use the CAD line tool. I'm going to pick up the snap point on the nosing of the tread to draw the first line. Draw one more line, pick up the point. Right in that area is where that intersection is going to occur. And see that it actually trimmed off my line and joined it. I'm going to remove that segment because I want to continue to have my line go down and snap. Right at this intersection, I'm going to draw one more line, and that's where the dimension will go to represent the actual headroom. Let me click on the line segment. I'm going to use the tool Disconnect Selected Edge, and then I'll just press the Delete key. As I zoom out, I'm going to use the end-to-end dimension tool, and I'm going to pick up the snap on the line, pull that up to the ceiling finish. You could pull that over, snap it onto the end if you want to, so that you have the exact headroom information for that clearance. Do the same thing over here, and then finish your annotation. As I fade in and show you the completed version that I ended up with for the sample plan, you can see what I've done to finalize that. Back in the floor plan view, you see the call out for the camera S1. I'm going to change the way this looks in the floor plan. Let's go ahead and open up the camera. Use the open button. This is slightly different than opening the camera. This is opening the properties for the camera. I'm going to rename this camera something. Again, I like to name these with the beginning of the camera callout. So we'll call it S1 and we'll call it stair section. That way, by putting the S1 in the front, it will sort in my project browser. On the plan display panel is a few options. One of them, I'm going to mark that it's going to display on both sides. Callout size, text below line, text below line. Just as a reminder, if you click the automatic option, you send that out to the layout, that will populate the text below the line with your layout page. You can also manually type in the information you want if there is text below the line. And sometimes I do like to set all my callouts a certain size. When the text below the line is added, the callout size, if it's set to be automatic, will grow, and most of the time out of the box it is set to automatic. So let's go ahead and zoom out, and I'm going to modify these cameras, toggle on my crosshair so I can use the alignment on the outside callout cameras or outside elevation cameras, and now those cross-section lines look pretty good for the floor plan. When I'm doing my cross sections, I'll usually start from one side of the model, work my way around, and then go up and down the model, and then name the cameras sequentially as I do the process. You can always rename them later. That's just my typical process. Let's do one more cross section in the up and down direction. Using the back clip cross section, I'm going to come in and just create a small slice right in this area right here. While you're in this view, you can rename the camera and also modify the plan display. Come up into the Edit Active View option. And here's the option to display the camera on both sides. And on the camera itself, we come in here and we put S2. And I'm just going to call this the garage section. Again, by putting the word S2 at the front, it will help sort that in my project browser. In this view, when you're doing annotations, some of the things that I'll do, I may put a slope indicator on the roof, and in my library I store a slope indicator. You can do the same thing, or in this case you might just grab the CAD line tool and draw a couple of lines, put a slope on it. That way you can call out the slope for your roof or your ceiling pitch. Using the text tool, and I'm going to use the text with leader line tool, zoom in, and I'm just going to come in here and put a small note that says ceiling formed from roof. And any other text that you want, you can go through the process of annotating it. One of the things with this project, I have a car elevator in here. The supports for the car elevator are going to need to go down a ways. I'm going to use a CAD tool and just show the process for how these are going to come out. So I'll just draw in the line. I'm not going to worry about the dimensions for the purpose of the session. And then let's draw one more for the footing for that. Just put that in there. I'm going to grab both of them and just change the line style so that they're dashed or hidden style line. And then one more. Let's go ahead and actually copy that so that we have two of those. Use the copy tool. I'm just going to slide that over onto the other side, and then a small text tool with annotation that says something like car elevator see MFG specs. And then dimension tool. Notice that off to the side over here we have a small pop-out room. Just use the end-to-end dimension and pick up the dimension and pull that down until we get the snap. And then one final thing that I'll typically do is I might put the room names in here. So we just type in garage. That way it's obvious if you're cutting a section through here that you can easily see that. It's a nice little thing that helps if you're doing your section views, and then you can kind of display it. Here's the finished variation of this particular section used in the sample plan view. That wraps up the session on elevations and cross sections. To get a closer look or download the Austin sample plan, please see our website, and thanks for watching.
Okay, we're going to open this up for questions. If you have questions related to sections and elevations, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll call on you. When we call on you, be sure to unmute your microphone. Let us know your name and where you're calling from. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Carrie to help with the questions.
Thanks, Scott. We have Norman. Hi, Norman. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Afternoon, Scott. This is Norman from New Zealand. Bright sunny morning here.
Very nice.
Hey, you actually answered one of the questions just about room names, that you put those in manually in your sections.
Right.
So that answered that. The other one is on the call out, when you check automatic, so that it gives you the page number in your layout. Is that dynamic? So if I start changing my pages around, will that just automatically update?
Right, that's a macro in there. And so if you move your elevation view from page 2 to page 5, then that text will get updated.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much.
Okay. Hey, thanks for joining us.
You're most welcome, and I look forward to trying out version 14, X14.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay. Thanks so much. Bye.
Let's check in with Charles. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, Charles.
Hello, Charles from Texas. Question I have with regard to, I don't know, the font sizes. When a 13 version, when you make a schedule, the font is so small up there, sometimes I just have to type it manually. Is there a way we can just do it all one time? If I missed it, I couldn't hear it, I guess.
Okay. So your question, let me just open the program up here. Let me switch over and open up one of the views. Just want to make sure I understand it. Is your question on the call out itself, or is it on the text that gets generated?
Text generated on the schedule. When you have all the windows, 2Ds, 3Ds pictures, so forth. It's way on the top. If you create one and open all the windows schedule, you'll see the text is micro. It's so small.
Okay. Well, let's take a look. Let me just open up the exterior schedule here.
Okay.
And so this is a schedule that I've created for the exterior notes. And so it's fairly readable here. And if we just kind of toggle on our active layer display, this is on a text style at the very bottom right side of my screen called Schedule Style Text. And if I click on the Define button here, we don't know what that is until we hit Edit. But I've got mine set up to be using a specific font, and then my character height is set to be 6 inches. So if I were to switch that to, just momentarily, if I switch that to my 1-inch style, that's going to get pretty small once I switch that on. Once I tap on that, well, let me switch that over to the 1-inch style. You see how small that got?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so check your text style for what the font size is and what the font type is, and that should help in controlling that text size. Does that help?
Well, if you create a window schedule right now, just go pick up all your windows.
Okay, so I've got a Windows schedule here. Let's just grab it.
There you go. See, way on the top. See that window schedule? See how tiny that is? I just want to make that.
Oh, you want to change that to be bigger? Okay.
Yeah.
So probably what I would do is come on to
ask me, where's that window? I cannot see it. So I said, man.
Okay, so if I come on to the title text, right?
Okay.
Let's crank that up to 12.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Is that what you're after?
That answered my question. The next
Now-
one is quickly.
Now let me just put a caveat there, Charles. I am using version X14,
Okay.
and that specifically inside of the control is X14. So if you came in here and you wanted to change some of these items, so I can change the header and the title, that is a new feature in X14 that if your SSA is currently active, you can download that today in a beta version.
Okay, great. So yeah, I have a SSA. And the next question is, do you have any elevator? I'm working on an ADA house. They need to have, not the lift. I need the elevator actually. Do we have it in the new version?
I don't know. That's a good question. Let me do a search here. So let me come down. I may not have downloaded the catalog entirely, but here's a accessible design folder.
Yes.
You see where it says lifts and elevator components. Let's go ahead and show that in my library browser. So that shows up under the accessible design category.
Right.
And if you wanted to get, I'm going to pause here and see if Adrian's out there and see if we have the elevator. Charles, you're after the elevator car itself?
Yeah, actually elevator, that person can go stand in it, not that lift.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have a handicapped person wants to see that.
Yeah. Let me just pause here and see if Adrian can maybe commentate on that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, we have another catalog. Carrie has just chatted it out in the chat box that has some more components for elevators and escalators, more commercial style. These still don't necessarily include the car. And the reason that we don't offer the car right now is because I think you're probably better served to create kind of a room inside of a room for the elevator shaft. And you can put paneling and railings, and you can add a custom sliding door and that sort of thing. So you can create the space yourself using existing tools in the software.
Okay.
Unless you feel like there's something that we really can't handle, I'd love to get an email that has images and even links or anything like that. That would help guide us on what specifically we could create for a catalog. So you can send anything like that to content@chiefarchitect.com, and our team can review it and look at making another catalog.
Okay, so currently you don't have it, in other words, right?
We don't do the car, yeah. We have some of the hoist components and that sort of thing. So, and I think we've done a video that we can link to as well that kind of shows maybe the methodology you might use to create your own elevator space.
Okay, it's just probably with the 2D drawing, I guess, show it on a floor plan. Otherwise, they just want to see the 3D view of it, how it looks. So I may have to just create something. I don't know. But if you guys can come up with that, that would be great.
Yeah, right now what we kind of suggest doing is creating like essentially a sliding door that has the door style that you might use. But yeah, we haven't seen a lot of examples of items that you can't just create using things like walls and doors inside of Chief Architect.
Yeah.
So if you have other ideas or something else in mind that I just don't know about, I'd love an email that gives more detail on that.
I will do that. I use a lot of, I use Chief Architect for lots of commercial projects, a lot of gas stations, shopping center, and it's really powerful, and it's been great. Besides building a house, if you guys can add more commercial libraries, it's going to help a lot, and I think it's beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Carrie?
Yes, our next question is from Bahram. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
My name is Bahram Mozayani with Vector Vision, and I work with projects that are a little bit out of the ordinary, including curves, like curved stairs, and maybe angles in the building. And So when we're looking at cross sections, especially with the stairs and head clearance, if it's a curved stair, is there a way that you could do a curved section?
Okay, so good question, Bahram. Let me just grab a plan here and close a couple things that I have open. And let's assume that we take these stairs that I have over here, and I'm just going to click on them and maybe curve them a little bit. So you want to figure out and cut a section through there and figure out how to show your headroom. Is that fair?
Correct.
So I might pause here and see, Al, if you have suggestions on how to handle creating a headroom for maybe a set of angled or curved stairs.
Aside from putting two elevations together, I'm not aware that we can do an actual curved cross section.
Right. Yeah, we can do a curve.
Can you back clip inside the section, inside the staircase itself?
I can't. I mean, I can only clip. I don't have any control over exactly. Boy, I got a lot of stuff open apparently. So we switch back over here, and let me make sure I got my camera on. Let's just turn that on. There we go.
If you set the camera right inside the staircase, you could probably.
Like that, Al?
Yeah, something like that. I think you can also, when you draw the camera, you can also use the control key to
angle.
Put the angle in there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, Bahram, we can't curve the cross-section camera. It's really only an orthogonal camera, so it's going to be on, you know, a straight plane. And I think what Al suggested here is you might have to put a couple of those together to be able to generate the exact view you want. It sounds like your request would be able to maybe follow the curvature of that stair to create a section view. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a good solution other than drawing a handful of those and piecing them together. But we'll make sure we capture your request there.
But can you rotate the camera after you place it to just get kind of the best picture?
Sure. Once you select that camera, as I kind of zoom out, let me grab my handle here. Where is that rotate handle? There should be a rotate handle. I'm not seeing it. Let me draw one more. Where is that rotate? Huh. Let me see if it's inside the camera itself. X and Y position. Does anybody know where that rotate is?
I haven't found it, but I have found that when you draw the camera, if you run the control key, you can adjust the angle there.
Right.
Oh, just hold the control key?
Yeah. You see how I'm doing that, Bahram? I'm actually holding my control key down.
I see. Okay. That's a good one. That will work.
Yeah. So,
okay, thank you.
But we'll make two notes. One is for a curvature on the camera, and the other one is, and we may have it, the ability to rotate it after the fact. For some reason, I thought I had that on there, but I'm not seeing it right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot.
Scott, we have Rob here with his question. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question, Rob.
Hi, this is Rob. I'm from Audubon, Minnesota. I had a question on the callout. When you do the callout for elevation. The callout for the elevation.
Yeah.
Where it automatically generates a sheet number. Is there a way that you can do that? Because in the architectural field, I've always had like the A sheets for architectural and M for mechanical and all that. Is there a way to do that so you can actually have it the A dash and then the sheet 3 or whatever.
Okay, you're talking about in the layout sheet itself.
Yeah, because I know that's a nice feature that you added in 14. I haven't been able to download the 14 beta yet because my SSA expires in May 20th instead of the 31st.
Mm-hmm. So you want to have it say like A1 or something like that, and then as you page through, it'd be A2.
My sheet will say A-1, A-2 instead of just 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got that in my titles.
Okay.
To do that, but when you send the view to the layout where it automatically puts in the sheet number,
yeah,
is there a way in that call out arrow to have it so it does like an A dash and then the sheet number?
Well, let's see if we understand. So let's, first of all, I'm going to change my macro text to say A dash, right?
Dash, yep. Yeah.
And, once we figure that out and move it around, and we go to page 1, right? So there it is. And then we open up this section view. Let's actually close that. And let's go ahead and grab this section. And inside the camera, right, if I go into the edit active view.
So it'd be in the plan display.
Right, when we say automatic, right, text below line, automatic. And then we'll click automatic there. So that will grow the call out size once it inserts it there. And then we send this out to the layout. So we come in, file, send to layout. I'm going to send that actually out to sheet 2 because that's a little bit bigger page. So let's take a look at what happens here. So give that just a second. And then I'll switch over to, the layout. So that places that on the layout. Of course, that's on our site disturbance. That's okay. And then we move back over into our floor plan. And we zoom in, and it looks like what it's done here is it's put the number 2, and you are suggesting you want to see A1 in there automatically.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see if, I suppose, layout page number, which is probably layout page label. Well, I'm not real sure. Let's try a couple of these. Let's see if that helps. That's 2. Let's go back in and, Josh, are you out there? Do you know the answer to this? $22. That's the same number, 2 and 2. Yeah, so I guess the only thing that I would do is I would probably pre-populate that with something like A dash.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That'd be about the only. Yeah.
It's probably
so
the
it's
best
not something
thing I would do.
Yep, and that's what I have been doing in 13. But like I said, but I have to do it manually because it's
right. So you're looking for the explicit number that would show up on the layout sheet, whatever this entire value is. You want that to show up in the callout itself. Okay.
Yeah, it was just something I was used to from Autodesk when I used to work in Autodesk.
Yeah.
So
it's possible that there's a macro I don't know about, but if I don't know that and we don't maybe reach back out to you, then I'll make sure that that's captured as a request to have that entire value put in there.
Yeah. And then I guess the other question I had was on when you did the section cut and you typed in like the room number. This is, like I said, this is coming back from previous program that I worked on. We could actually turn the room label layer on.
Right. Right.
So it automatically populates it.
Yeah, we have a layer for room label. The problem is when you cut a section, when I take a section view and I cut it, you might be showing many rooms, right? Depending on how far your section goes, right? And so we've got to figure out which one we think you want to see. And of course, you can break these section views so it can zigzag through your design. And so there's some complexity to it. And what I currently do, you probably saw in my session there, is I basically use a text label to put those room labels in there.
And that's what I thought. I saw that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But that is something where we've heard that request before. There's some complexity knowing which room is which, since there can be many rooms behind that, and trying to make sure that it's somewhat logical before we put that out into the wild, so to speak.
Yeah, I've been working on Chief for 2 years, and I'm really getting to like it. So these little things that are coming out in 14, I really like, but I have to get my SSA updated to get the 14 download, because like I said, mine expires on May 20th instead of May 31st, so I can't get the beta version yet.
Yep, you're very close.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, thanks, Rob.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Carrie, how about we do 2 more questions, and then I'll do a little bit of closure notes, let people know what's going to happen with the next sessions coming up. Then I'll come back on for those people that want to stick around and still have additional questions. And of course, everybody's welcome to stick around if they'd like to beyond that. I just want to be respectful of the hour or so time slot we have.
Sounds good. Our next question comes from Duncan. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. Duncan from Spokane Valley, Washington again.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. In the story poll, the automatic story polls, you can do manual adjustments, right? And I'm wondering, when you have a marker or a target, whatever it is you call that circle that's quartered and parts of it shaded in, can you adjust that crook in it so that when you have 2 of those close together, that you can separate them a little bit to get the text and dimensions in?
Yeah, let's reopen this camera here and see if I understand your question. So in some of these cases, I've reorganized on the bottom section of this so that it gives a little bit of more room, because we've only got about 6 inches of separation. And when you have that, then it gets pretty tight, right?
Right. So
and
those straightened out. Can you crook them?
What you can do, right, is click on the edge of it, and then you can pull them around and adjust them depending on what your style preference may be. A lot of times I'll turn on my crosshairs to try to use that as an alignment with maybe one above or something like that, so that it can be, helpful for that. Is that what you're looking for?
Right. I didn't know you had the handles. Is that a 14 or is that in 13?
No, that should be out there with the version 13. That's and sometimes it's a little tough. You have to click on it. I've turned my selection handle to red, so make sure when you click on that extension, you may just have to click in a certain area to actually get it, and then you can, then move those around depending on what your, layout needs to be.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Scott.
Yeah, you bet.
That seemed pretty easy.
Well, it's only easy if you know about it, right?
Right. Yeah. Great. Thanks.
You bet. Okay. Last question, then we'll take a brief break and come back. Go ahead, Carrie.
We have Lori here. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, I unmuted myself. Can you hear me, Scott? Hello? Hello?
Hi, Lori.
Right. Oh, there. Okay. Yeah. I'm so nervous.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. I am Lori from Michigan, and I have been using Chief for about 4 years. So I'm not new to Chief. I've used it a lot for design work, but I have been drawing homes as well, creating blueprints. But I am not an architect and or a draftsman. I'm self-taught, and with the help of patient contractors and builders, it's been going really well. So forgive me if this question is just a lack of my knowledge, if that makes sense, okay?
Sure.
So when I'm building a barn dominium, one roof plane is at 144 inches, or I'm sorry, top of plate, the ceiling in the room, and the other section of the building is at 120 at 10 feet. When I hit the auto story pole dimension for the print, it's coming up, Scott, at like 9.1. It's not grabbing my top of plate, but when I open up my roof plane specification box and I look, the top of plate is locked at the right dimensions, but it's not transferring to the story pole.
Okay. So you have something like a shed roof or some variation?
Yes, yep. Both roof planes are 112. Single slope.
And on one side you've got a 120 plate height, and on the other side you have a 144 plate height. Is that
correct? Yep.
Yeah. And so sometimes I have to do that via a little trial and error. Let me just start a new plan here.
And I want.
Go ahead.
I wondered if it was in my ceiling plane specification, because I put the ceiling in at the absolute elevation. You know, the 144. That's where I have it indicated.
Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to make a high shed gable roof.
Okay.
On this far wall, and then the two opposing walls I've set as gable. And then when I build the roof, let's just build it maybe at a pretty shallow 2 and 12.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And let me just make sure that's turned on. There we go. So then when we, we take a look at this thing, right? We have this simple little shed, right?
Yes.
So on the shallow side, we want a plate height of roughly 144 or on 120 and 144, right?
Right. 144 on that is fine. You can do 140.
Yeah. So depending on the width and everything and all those things, usually what I end up doing is if I take a section through here, well, let's check. And roughly my plate height, if we look at this on the structure panel, my rough ceiling, as you kind of see here as I highlight this, is 121 and an eighth. So that'll be pretty close to your 120. Now, if you wanted it exactly 120, you could lower that rough ceiling to 120. Does that make sense? This will just be for the one side. Then I'm going to take a section view, right?
Okay.
And so if I remove the ceiling out of there, I won't have a ceiling. Let's pop that out real quick. So let's just kind of go in there. Let's pop the ceiling out so we don't have a ceiling. And we're back in the section view.
Okay.
And so when I want to make sure, let's throw our story pole dimension on the one side. So I've got 10, 1, and an 8, right?
Yes.
And let's just assume that's close enough to 120 since we know where we could change that. And now you want 144 on the other side, correct?
Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to do. Since I'm probably not good at figuring out quick angles, I'm just going to draw a line in here. It's going to represent where 144 is. Okay?
Okay.
I'm going to pull the story pole up to that.
Okay.
And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the line and let's run our dimension. So that'd be, let's just do 144 minus 120. Okay, so in theory, that's at 144 top to bottom. It's not quite because I have 1 1/8 inches there.
Okay.
So you can see that I now need to lower my roof plane approximately 8 inches, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So if we pivot this thing, let's switch back over into our roof plan view. And let's see if we can do this. So I'm going to lock the top of plate, right? Al, where would I want to move this to get that down, do you think, 8.5 inches?
Well, you're
going
gonna have to. You're gonna have to. If you're gonna move down 8.5, you're gonna have to do something with the ridge. But I don't know whether you. The ridge is on the overhang.
Yeah.
So
So if we. So I'm going to do a poor man's version of this. So what I'm going to do is I need to figure out what the angle of the roof is. The roof's going to change, going to basically control what the plate height is of this area, right, Lori?
Okay. And Scott, I may have really confused you. Time out 1 second.
Okay.
The ceiling height in the room. So your left edge over there.
Yeah.
Let's say that's at 144, because this is the shop portion of the barn dominium. So it has a flat ceiling at 144. And whatever the top right turns out to be is whatever it turns out to be.
Oh, it's not as important to have that. Okay.
No. So what's not transferring for me is I have the top plate locked at 144 on the left side. And when I hit the auto story pole, it's not saying 144 inches to top of plate. The number is off. Okay. I don't have the plan in front of me. Yeah, like that says 144. So I'm sure it's something I am not clicking on correctly when I label the ceiling height in the room, possibly.
Okay, so let's go back in and we look at, I changed the rough ceiling to 144.
Okay.
Okay, so you see that in the diagram.
Yep.
Then we make sure that our roof is on automatic.
Yes, okay.
And make sure that my pitch
is a 2.
Is at 2 or whatever it is.
Okay, yep, that's fine. Ours is at 1.
And then when we go in there and cut the section, in theory, the left side should be at 144.
Correct.
Approximately, because it's.
Yep, and there it is.
Right. So
okay.
My roof is set to be automatically rebuilding. I remove the ceiling out of the room. And what that means is that the ceiling height and the roof pitch is going to dictate how high this wall is. The wall will grow to
right
that roof.
Okay.
Okay,
that makes sense. I think where my mistake is, Scott, is in the back in the ceiling plane specification box where I put the 140 inches. I see you have that in rough.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But what is important is if the roof is on automatic, because if I don't have this on automatic, right?
Okay.
I turn my roof off from automatic, okay? And then I go into the room and I'll change the room back to, let's say, 108. We'll just use a simple number.
Yep.
This isn't going to update for me.
Okay.
Because the automatic roof, when it's in automatic mode, will look at the plate, the room height, and generate those for you. But you have to have your roof in automatic mode, or if you're comfortable in manual mode, you can do it that way. But when it's in automatic mode, it knows where to generate.
Okay. And Scott, that may be exactly what I did wrong or what I have messed up, because I actually had the roof in manual. I drug a roof plane across and I've been messing with it, so I probably messed it up. So I'll put it back in auto because it is just a single slope shed roof. The program does that so good. So I'll put it back in auto and I'll see if that fixes it.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Thanks for calling in.
We have 3 more questions, and the first is from Robin. Hi, Robin. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey there, how are you today?
Hey, Robin.
Hopefully mine's a really quick question. You're probably going to say no because I've asked this one before, but I'm going to ask it again. When I am rotating, sometimes I'll have a plan where it is taller than it is wide, but I need to have the floor plan on the page. So sometimes I'll do a rotation and I will rotate that print. My text rotates with that print, but my elevation views do not.
Okay.
So I have asked several times, and I'm going to give a shout out to the one-on-one training, which I've done many times, and I cannot love that enough. But I've even had trainers say, nope, we can't do it. So I figure I'm going to throw it out there to see if you can answer it, Scott.
Well, let's see. I think maybe if the training department said no, then I would hate to contradict them. So let's just take a quick peek. Let me grab something in here. So you need to rotate something on a layout sheet. Is that what you're after?
Correctly. Yep.
Like that?
Yeah, sometimes I'll have to rotate it depending on I was working on a row house, and it was just on 11 by 17 paper, and it wasn't on, or I'll be working on just a long bathroom or something like that. And so, yeah, so I'll need to do that exact thing. And the text, if you have the text set on rotate, all my text goes with it, my numbers go with it, everything goes except for my section views, my cross sections, elevations.
Okay, so you're trying to do something like this?
Yep.
Okay, so my text, that's following the same thing. You might have to turn your head a little bit.
Well, it's the text, there's a setting for text that rotates it with the plan. And so I have that on, so my text rotates, and that's usually fine. And not necessarily it's the call out markers that don't rotate. So the call out markers.
Right, so my call out markers, I keep those independent of my view. And so if I included that with this view, it would be rotated. But my call out markers, so this is actually in the floor plan, right? That's the elevation camera.
Okay.
This is on the layout sheet, and this is just text. So I would have to manually, rotate that myself on there. But if I took and put the, let's turn on the labels for this. I don't have it formatted, but if I have that as a part of the layout box, then that would rotate with this as I rotate it around. That would follow it, and of course you can format that how you want.
Yeah, it's the elevation views like in the plan view, not necessarily this views, but looking at if you go back to your plan view, right there, it's the elevation markers that I have on the plan view, on the floor plan itself.
Okay, so here's the floor plan, right?
Correct.
And here are the elevation markers.
Yep, and if I send that to a layout, and if I rotate that plan, it's the elevation markers that don't change, but the text will rotate with it. Even like cabinet nomenclature will rotate just fine. Everything goes with that rotation. The only thing that doesn't rotate is my sections. But I have the settings set for all text and everything to rotate, and you probably don't.
So here's what I may be doing that's different than you. I'm doing this on the layout sheet itself. I'm not doing it in the floor plan. So in the floor plan itself, if I double click on this, because I'm in the layout, if I double click on this, this is going to open up the floor plan itself. It is still in let's say a 90-degree orthogonal view. And I'm not rotating it in this view. I can rotate it in this view, but now in X14, if you send this out to the layout sheet, you can rotate it on the layout sheet itself and think of the layout sheet as just a nice organization place for your drawings.
Correct, yes.
So I'm not rotating it in the plan itself. I'm rotating it.
I don't either. I only rotate it in layout, and I have this, like all my text and everything rotates just fine when I come across that. It's only my camera views, my section views that
Okay.
So text and those do not rotate.
Okay. So does mine look like it's rotated okay for you?
I don't think yours rotated at all. I mean,
Well,
they
didn't.
didn't rotate, so they basically stayed in the same position.
Okay.
So
Let's go to
so you can't read them top to bottom, is what I'm saying. As soon as you rotate that view, your cameras aren't read top to bottom. Your cameras stay in the same rotation they are in your plan view. Even if you rotate it in layout, it stays the same orientation as your plan view.
Okay.
So even though in your layout, all the text will naturally rotate, or I have that setting so text will rotate. And I run into that mostly when I use 17 by 11 paper, and I only run into it for interior issues, never for 24 by 18 or 24 by 36. So it's only with like 17 by 11 paper that I run into it.
Okay, so here's a bathroom plan, right? And if I were to rotate that 90 degrees, what would you want to happen?
I would want to be able to see the B1, B2, B3 stay that same orientation.
Okay, so the camera B2 would always somehow, well, if I rotate this, it's going to follow it. So it's always going to be pointing at the shower wall, right?
Yep. And see, that's where, and so I'm an X AutoCAD user as well. And we could like click on the arrow and we could turn that arrow and keep that elevation and have our text oriented the correct way.
Okay, so you want to click on the arrow, right?
Yeah.
And rotate the arrow itself. Now, this is an elevation camera, but if I did it with a call out, I could move it as a call out.
Yeah. And it's only when I rotate the plan, like I want the B2, so the text, like the B2 text stays in that orientation, even though the arrow follows the bench.
So what I might do is I might use a call out itself, not a camera view. And you could link a call out to a camera view if that makes sense. But I'm going to place a free floating call out, okay? And I'm just going to call it B2. And then we'll put a, arrow style on it. Well, no, I don't want that. And we'll put one of those guys on there. Okay. And now I'm going to rotate this around. Is that what you're after, to be able to rotate the arrow?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, if that could be just a fake call out, then that's I can just turn off do exactly what you're doing. I'll just turn off my section views and my elevations, and I'll just add my own to when I rotate
So here's what I can do. This is just a call out, so it's a text object, right? If I open this up, I can go to the link panel, and I can link that to this camera called B2, and that should be underneath our cross sections, B2.
Yep,
right?
And I've actually done that differently in a different situation before, so I kind of knew that. So good enough.
Yeah. So now when you double click on that, right, it's going to open up that, just like it's a camera. And let's zoom in so we can actually see it.
Perfect.
It's going to open it up just like that, and you can rotate that however you want.
That's perfect. And now perfect. That's perfect. Yes. Now I can access that section view, and I can have my labels in the correct, when somebody's looking at them, that they're all lined up. It's really about presentation there. So thank you.
Okay. So did I give you a better answer than the training department?
You gave me a way better answer than the trainers.
No, that's actually, that linking capability is part of X14, where I link the call out to a camera. So if you actually want to click on it and open the camera, that's a linked call out, and that's a new feature in X14.
Cool beans. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for calling in, Robin.
I guess that's all for today. Scott, did you have any announcements you wanted to make?
Okay. Well, hey, thanks everybody for attending today. We have 4 sessions that are remaining in the Austin sample plan. 2 kitchen sessions beginning next week, part 1, same place, same time, and then we'll follow that up with bath and then remodeling with as-built overlays. So that's our remaining schedule for the seminar series coming up. I did want to point everybody to a few events we have in addition to that. We have our 2-day training in person, first time in 2.5 years. We'll be in Dallas teaching a kitchen and bath class and then also a residential intermediate class. So if you want to head to Texas and come and see us, that'd be a great opportunity. We also have, if I pull up our website here briefly, we also have another event. If we scroll down towards the bottom, we're going to be in Texas doing a seminar the day before the training, May 18th, designing and selling with 3D software. If you're collecting continuing ed credits, that's a great place to be a credit collector and take a look at our presentation there in Texas. So the other events we have coming up, we have our virtual training. We've got a new class that will be starting on May 6th. So you can attend that. That's a virtual class. And then we have our on-demand training. These are our training classes. You can sign up for these anytime and watch those at your convenience. So they kind of toggle back here just to kind of point out that we do one-on-one training. If you'd like some extra help, do some screen sharing, kind of like we're doing here, and just go through your particular project. We offer that as a service. And if you want to just reach out to our staff here, then we'd be happy to get you set up with that. So I wanted to thank everybody for attending this week, and hopefully we'll see you back here at the same place, same time. Have a great day, and see you next week.